3. Hello, fight fans. I am Jason Burgos here to co-host a new edition of Back Talk, and this time around, I am joined by a co-host that is a widely popular star of mature film, webcam icon, social media influencer, podcaster, and of course, a big fan of the sport of mixed martial arts, and that is the one and only Kendra Lust, Madam Lust. Thank you for joining me to co-pilot this podcast tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. Wish I was actually where you're at. You're in New York, right?
Yes, I am.
Would be much more exciting than being here. But it's okay. Thanks for having me.
And my pleasure. Now, I have so many questions, so many things to ask you about and talk about. Now, I recently watched your interview with James Lynch, and you talked about getting into MMA about, 3 years ago or so, and actually doing MMA-related workouts. Talk to me about, like, the training you've done, because I've seen you pop up on several fighters' social media over the last couple of years, training with them and stuff like that. Like, are you actually actively training, say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe Muay Thai, kickboxing, something else? Are you, doing, like, real in-depth MMA-related things as just workouts for your free time?
Yeah. So I like to work out. Lately, I've been kind of in a slump with this quarantine. It's been a little bit crazy. I know a lot of the gyms are not open, but I'm trying to make use of some of the things that I have at home. Definitely looking to get back, into a regular routine of doing a little bit of Muay Thai and some Jiu-Jitsu. The coach I was training with, I'm like, okay, I think, we're going to take a little bit of a break because of the pandemic, but I'm missing it. It's a great workout. I love it. So I told her, I'm like, okay, I need to get back at this. So it will be starting up soon, within the next week or so. I'm kind of going stir crazy.
Is there an aspect of it that you really enjoy compared to, say, other workouts you've done in the past? I know you're, what I read, you're big into fitness before. So, like I saw in the interview, you mentioned, like, it works out the muscles that you didn't even know you have. Is that what it is? Or really, those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like bittersweet, when I'm doing it, I'm just like, holy cow, this is kicking my ass, especially when, you're doing, because I like striking. I don't know what it is. It's just, I think it takes out some aggression. And, and then when you see, when you tweak one little thing and you see that your kick is a little bit more powerful. And again, I have a long way to go, but it's fun for me. So but those kicks, people do not understand, your lower body when you're working that out.
Yes.
It is intense. It's so much more difficult than just, upper body stuff. So, I like a little bit of both. I like rolling around on the ground, obviously, but it's kind of fun in that sense too. So.
Would you say, like, you're a fan of, like, overall MMA? Because I know you're friends with folks like Juan Archuleta and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, are you watching Bellator? Are you watching PFL, One Championship? Or are you mostly, because you're still relatively new to it, mostly just UFC kind of content?
Oh, no, I caught Bellator fights on Friday, and then absolutely, and if I'm not able to catch them, I stream them, or I'll catch up, I'll try to catch up that way. But I'm watching both. I don't have a preference, UFC versus Bellator. I think if, they're a good fighter and they're entertaining to watch, I enjoy it, and it's cool to, watch the prelims as well, just because you kind of get an idea, like the new up-and-comers, and it's exciting. So I caught both fights Friday and Saturday, and wow, I enjoyed both Bellator and UFC. They were both great cards.
And you make me feel bad a little bit because you were saying, you're still getting used to it. I don't even watch all the prelims. I can't even see all the prelims. So the fact that you're watching prelims, that's outstanding. That's a deep dedication to the sport. So I respect that. But, going back to, like, that talk you had with James, you talked about, like, some of your favorite fighters being strong female fighters. Also, people like Juan, your Beauty and the Beast co-host, Julian Marquez. Yeah. But there are some fighters people can't stand. Like, I know I've had a few before. I try to be unbiased now as a journalist, but are there fighters out there you just want to see get beat up? Like, is Colby Covington someone you want to see get beat up? Maybe John Jones, Sean O'Malley. Are there some fighters that you really just can't stand?
For a while, I wasn't the biggest John Jones fan. I don't know why. It just, something about him, and and not because, he pound for pound, like, he is the greatest, like, heavyweight, like, ever. So, I feel I just wanted someone to beat him. So I just did. I just got so tired of his long legs. It's like he has the advantage. Nobody can get inside, and he just wears the legs
No one
out.
kicks those legs either.
Right. So so I wanted him to lose, and then after kind of becoming more of a, learning more about the sport and becoming a little bit more educated about it, I have developed more of a respect for him. And then, he has taken some time away and has done some things in the community. Yeah. So I was like, gosh, like, I do. But for a while, I want him to lose. So I take that back. However, I wanted this fighter to lose, and he did. And I don't know. I just feel Sugar O'Malley, like he, the way he talked so much crap, I guess, and then he went out on a stretcher. So for me, I was glad he lost. I thought he got too cocky too quick, and he says humbled, but is he really? I don't know. Yeah, Sugar Show. I should have said. Yeah. So we'll see. So I'm kind of. I don't want to say I'm glad he lost, but I'm kind of glad he lost. I am.
A lot of people are with you and that feeling for sure. But so I like I mentioned, you have the podcast with Julian of Beauty and the Beast podcast, who I interviewed last week and asked him about it as well. Yeah. The show is doing great, putting up big numbers already. Talk to me about how the show came together from your point of view. Also, what do you love about doing it and feel it kind of offers the viewer? Because you two talk about all kinds of topics on the show.
Yes, and we do. And we realize like the first 10, 20 episodes are just going to be us kind of getting comfortable with each other and us going back and forth. However, we really have talked about recently, the last couple of weeks, just narrowing down, what the show is going to highlight. And a bit of it is going to be, obviously, it's going to focus on sex and sports, because sports is kind of his forte, obviously. And then, me coming from the adult industry, just, having some knowledge about sex education. And so kind of coming together with a little bit of that. So that's kind of, and I have my little script here of like our show. We're going to be doing that tonight.
I do the script too. So, I respect that.
So highlighting women and, female empowerment and, just kind of getting his view, because he's, I believe, in his late 20s and, I'm 40. So a different perspective, both male and female. And he can talk about the dating world, whereas, I've kind of been there, done that. So it's kind of fun, So that's where we're at. But we met a couple of years ago in Vegas. And, at that time, he wasn't even fighting. And when we decided to do this, I thought, I want to do a podcast. I'm not comfortable like doing it by myself, so I want to co-host. So we were just kind of chatting, and I thought, I was like, he's kind of fun, so maybe I'll ask him. And I had no motive. Like, I didn't know he was ever going to fight again. Like, I didn't know a ton about him. I just knew that he did. And if he fought again, great. If he didn't, that's his choice. But he was a cool person. So my motive wasn't just because he was in UFC. I just thought he could give me some insight. So it kind of worked out. And now, obviously he's back, and everything kind of revolves around his training camp with the podcast. So so it's cool.
And I like it. It's a good balance, different perspectives and topics that a lot of people can understand and relate to. Now, I read you got your bachelor's in nursing, and you were a registered nurse for several years before you went into doing webcams and film and stuff like that. And I love that story of transition, but I am also curious on what, did your friends and family think of that transition? Because it's not like you did adult films right out of high school. You did all the things loved ones would be proud of. You went to college, you got the degree. Were they supportive on some level doing the webcam stuff, the adult films, because it was a choice to improve your way of living? Or is it still, it took a long time for them to come around on the whole idea?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's not like your typical conventional type of career. It's not like people say, I'm going to grow up and, I want to do porn, I mean, and that it's okay, and it's, it's not a traditional type career. So obviously when I started, I think they were shocked a little bit. I had some family members, not immediate, but extended, that were like, oh my gosh, or whatever. And that's fine. I always say what people think of me is is none of my business, because at the end of the day, I don't have anything to prove to anyone else other than my immediate family. So my immediate family was supportive, and ultimately what somebody does not define who they are. And I'm not ashamed of my sexuality or being empowered, or it makes me feel empowered. And I feel like people, especially women, it's a double standard, and I'm completely against that double standard when it comes to that. So for me, I'm not ashamed, and I think we should be proud. We should be sex positive. We should support people and whatever it is that they want to do, as long as they're not harming children, animals, or the elderly. Like, simple as that. So but it was a little nerve-wracking, at first. I'm like, oh my God.
And I'm glad you brought up the double standard, because that's kind of sort of the direction I was going, because female fighters in MMA are starting to make more money and do better than, say, their contemporaries in other combat sports like kickboxing and boxing and stuff like that. However, there's still a huge disparity between men and women's pay in MMA. Now, adult films, I would imagine, is similar to MMA, and like the fan base is very male leaning. However, more so than MMA, I would think the women in adult films are truly the money makers, because that's what people want to see. So, educate me. Does that mean the women in adult films make more than the men, or even in that industry there is still that shameful disparity between genders?
And no one's ever brought it up to me like that, comparing MMA to the adult industry. However, you are absolutely correct. Women, and it is kind of sad, because I've heard directors say, at the end of the day to the guys, like, you're just a piece of equipment, essentially. You're a prop. And, we couldn't do what we do without them.
True.
So my perspective was never that I'm more important than my male talent. I've never taken on that ideology, just because I regard everybody on set just as important, because if, the lighting guy or the sound guy or director, like, if your male talent's having a bad day, let me tell you, you're going to be on set a long time, so you want to make sure your director, producer's happy, and that your male talent's on point, because it could really ruin your day. So but there is a huge pay difference between male and female performers.
All right, I like that. I'm for that. I think it's more than fair. It's about time. It needs to be like that in other places. Now, when adult films are still kind of taboo in certain ways, at least here in the U.S. I feel like the industry, it is maybe far more mainstream than it was 15 or 20 years ago, and somewhere like yourself can have a huge influence on social media and stuff like that. But are there like veterans or like retired actors from the industry who have said things like begrudgingly to you, like, well, in my day, back in the 90s, we were just called porn stars and religious types. They came after us. You kids today have it easy. Like, did you get stuff like that, and kind of happy you started like in the 2020s and this era, not in the 90s and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, a lot of, I believe that there is I wouldn't say a lot of animosity, because I think a lot of the performers that back in the 90s, they were the ones that paved the way. So I think it's important to understand where the industry and how it has evolved, so you can really appreciate the benefits of social media and the autonomy that we have and control over our brand and our career, because they didn't have that back then. So I think it's important to respect that, respect your craft then and now, and to pay homage, and to not forget, the Jenna Jamesons, the Julia Anns, the Kylie Irelands, the Amber Lynns, like all of those, Ginger Lynns, all of those women and men, Evan Stone and Peter North, so you have to understand where it started to appreciate kind of what you have and where you are now. So absolutely, it's totally different though.
Even though we're supposed to be like this secular culture in the U.S., religion still has a huge influence on society. And I'm curious, like, if you ever had like a personal clash in terms of religion and being in adult films, because many of us, you're just indoctrinated into a religion from like a kid, and that's just kind of what you're told to do. You get into it, and that's, for me, it was Catholicism. Was it the same for you? And once you got older, eventually moved into adult fare, was there like a schism in your brain and what seems like warring concepts, or Are you of the mindset you can be very much an adult film star and still be religious, or at least have friends in the industry that feel that way?
Yeah, I think religion is personal to each person, and religion is, organized by man. Spirituality is something individual, and I think everybody either has their own, I guess, feelings. And I think it's relative to your situation and how you were raised. For me personally, I went to catechism. I made my communion, my confirmation,
Yep.
my confession. And I don't necessarily agree with Catholicism. I don't want to talk religion too much. I think everyone should believe in whatever it is that they
Yeah,
want to believe.
I
And
agree.
we all have to believe in something, I mean, if not, like,
Yeah.
what is our purpose? However, I think we're all sinning all the time.
Yeah.
If we're thinking about something, we're lusting. If we're eating too much, it's gluttony. So we're all committing these sins. However, I think, follow the 10 commandments. I really just be a good human,
Mm-hmm.
do the right thing, be kind, help your fellow brother, sister, friend, that type of thing. And at the end of the day, I really believe that, God or the higher power will say, hey, this person has been a good human. And
Mm-hmm.
because I do this, I'm doing it. I'm getting paid. Everybody else is doing it for free and hiding it. Their little skeletons in the closet. Let's be real.
Yeah.
They're doing it maybe
Mm-hmm.
for an Applebee's dinner. God help you all. You know, okay, and a movie. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
at least having fun with it, and
Yeah.
I'm owning it. So, but yeah, I think the struggle is real for a lot of people.
And I agree 1,000%. I'm a person that feels like if you got faith, you have a believe in the faith kind of thing. I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
Follow those kind of just like you just
yeah.
said, like the tenets of just being a good human being. Organized religion, it could be dangerous, but I'm moving from kind of like that religion to something that's like sort of a religion in itself, which is sports. Sports is almost a lot of religion for a lot of people. Aside from MMA, I know you're supposed to be a big sports fan too. Like, what are some of the other big sports? Like, who are your teams in other sports? Favorite athletes? What other things do you follow in there?
Oh my gosh. So I'm a huge basketball fan. I've played, oh my gosh, I remember dribbling around chairs. My dad had me doing it after first grade, like first and
Mm.
second grade, he coached a boys team. So I was a tomboy, so I'd go to all the practices and, I played rec league and stuff like that. Played high school, a little bit in college. So always basketball. Like that for me is just, I have this special love for basketball. I love football. Obviously
Mm-hmm.
never played that, but it is a brutal sport,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
I love it. I'd like to start learning more about soccer or football, as they call
Mm-hmm.
in the real sense. It's just an incredibly popular, intense. I mean, so much athleticism. So those are the main sports that I really like.
All right, so that's pretty much all the questions in terms I had for you and learning about you. So let's like transition now to just MMA questions. And I'm glad
Yeah.
to know you watched both shows this weekend, so you're going to be great with a lot of these questions now. The first question I have comes, and you're gonna love some of these names. These names that come from the Sherdog forums are always they're just beautiful stuff.
I
Now,
love it.
this first one comes from Substance Abuse. They ask,
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
they asked Dana White shut down UFC versus Bellator fights. Like they asked him in the post fight after UFC Vegas, oh, what do you think about super fights between the brands and stuff like
Yeah.
that? And he was not for it. They say,
Mhm.
why would he bring attention to a secondary organization? And could Michael Chandler and Patricio Pitbull hang in the UFC? Like, how much do you know about Chandler and Pitbull? And if you follow them, like you say you watch Bellator, what do you think? Do you think they could do very well in the UFC if they were in there?
I don't know enough about Chandler, but Pitbull absolutely could be in the UFC.
Yeah.
And and I heard Dana White say, he made a negative comment about Scott Coker about his. I think he said he had the best light heavyweight division
Yeah.
in
Yep.
the.
A
But I
cute
mean,
comment.
yeah, I mean, I get it because everyone, and he said that everybody that has left UFC has gone to Bellator. But Dana White didn't touch on the fact that you don't know why they left. Was it money? It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mean they were kicked out of the
Exactly.
league or whatever. And I love
Yep.
Dana White and I love Scott. I respect, they're both very savvy businessmen. However, Pitbull, absolutely. He is a
Yeah.
very skilled, talented fighter. And again, I don't know enough about Chandler. I should.
No, and that's I can take that one. I'm like I agree with you 1,000% on Pitbull. Like I've talked to him, very cool guy, and yeah, I think he's like that at that perfect point where he can give a Volkanovski trouble because he's got tons of experience. He's still relatively in that prime. Chandler, I feel like Chandler, like he should have went to the UFC like 2-3 years ago. Like I feel like he's when you get to a certain point in age at the lower weights, it's always dicey. You never know like when Father Time's gonna come in and say hello, I'm here and I'm here to stay. You know, so that's always dicey. But let me ask you about this in terms of, and I tweeted about that exact comment he talked about where he made the reference like, oh, him saying that isn't that cute of Scott and stuff like that, and people frustrated they won't have these cross promotional, and I feel like in the world we live in now, it's so brand centric. Everything's about brands now and everything like that. And it's all about when you're in a power position, protecting that brand. You're not going to give up that brand and let somebody get a piece of that brand. Like tell me, because I know you have to brand yourself and you've made yourself a brand and everything like that. Like how important is that branding and not wanting to maybe, not taint it, but share it too much in terms and dilute it on some level? Have you had to deal with stuff like that?
Well, let's be honest. I don't know, Jason, that you could taint my brand. I mean, and let's be real. And I'm not self-deprecating. I am not. Or trying to, I know who I am. However, people judge me based on the career the career that I've chosen. So, in the world's mind, I'm tainted. So it's my job. I don't have to prove them wrong, but it would behoove me not to, because if I don't look to, I guess, different avenues of, sports, podcasting, so I have to brand myself differently, a little bit different. So, God, I'm not even answering your damn question, but, but branding is important, you want to give that. I've given quite a bit, but there are parts of me that people still want to know and understand. And so now is the time to start getting a little bit more personal.
Yeah. Now I'll take two quick ones. We got some comments in the chat. We have from Frank McEdgar. I knew a question like this coming. This is probably the better of the questions, but he asks, in a great pun, are there any fighters that you lust for? But let's say, is there anything you lust for, or any particular fighters you think are exceptionally handsome?
I mean, there's a lot of fighters that are handsome. I thought that Nemkov was a cute Russian fella that came along. Yeah, he definitely took the spotlight. I mean, there's a lot of good-looking guys in there, but I don't really lust. I don't want to say I don't lust for anyone, but I try to keep it professional, and keep some of those things, because you don't know who's sliding and who's DMs and
Fair enough. Now, this next question comes from For Theo. They ask, which fight would you rather see? Frankie Edgar versus TJ Dillashaw or Frankie Edgar versus Dominic Cruz? Now, I have been pining for Edgar versus Cruz because they're just legends and they're kind of at that later stage, but they're still pretty good. Like, that's the fight I need to see. But this is a great question because TJ's coming back. Who wouldn't want to see TJ and Frankie? That's an amazing fight, too. And I'm not up to subscribing to, like, oh, yeah, TJ was doing stuff all the entire time. I feel like he did his cheating to make weight at one flyweight. That's my opinion. But for me, it's still Cruz, and the TJ idea is a great number two. What about those two as a fan? Which one would you rather see first?
In all honesty, it would really be cool to see Cruz and Edgar, because I just feel like, okay, Edgar's 38. A lot of people were saying, like, okay, he's had his time, he cut weight. Like, I think that would just be awesome. I have to agree. But, I mean, none of those fights, if you paired those three up in any way, it's not going to be bad. So, but I agree with you.
Now, this one, another interesting name, Satan's Daddy asks, what other adult film stars are into MMA that Kendra knows of? Are there any? Does adult films have a big MMA fan base or not really?
I mean, I think that there's a lot of crossing over of fans. Wrestling, MMA, adults, sports, and sex kind of go together. But as far as women that watch it, I know. I don't know a ton of the females. I know there's a male actor who does, and he hit me up, Manuel. He's like, hey, you know, I'm a big MMA fan, Kendra. I would love to be on your podcast. He's a veteran legend in our industry. So, yeah. So I mean, there are, but I'm in Michigan. They're in Cali, so it's like a lot of them. We're all over the place. Yeah. But I'm sure there are. But I don't know. I don't want to say there aren't any as big as me. I'd like to think that they're not into it as much as me.
Fair enough. Now, Stoic is. I think that's the way you say. Stoic asks, "What do you think about Paige VanZant signing with Bare Knuckle FC?" What are your thoughts on that? Like, that was a bit of a surprise. Everybody just figured, oh, she's gonna go to Bellator, be with the husband Austin Vanderford, maybe win a championship, but no, BKFC jumps in and steals one of the really truly good strong brands in MMA in terms of fighters and brands. She's as known as it gets, and despite maybe not having a stellar record. What were you stunned by that? What do you think her chances are going to BKFC?
I was not surprised at all. You know, if they're going to pay her, and you know, maybe she that's the thing. It's a business. Granted, this is her passion. You know what she does. However, at the end of the day, it's still a business. Okay, so she went there. They're going to pay her, and they're going to pay her well. So it would have been cool maybe for her to go to Bellator, but she's a businesswoman at the end of the day, and she went where they paid her. So I respect that 100%. Not surprised at all. She's a smart girl.
And what are your thoughts also too? Because I agree a bunch in terms of like, and people hating on her. Oh, you should have went to Bellator. You got to go where the money is. This is you know, being a fan and giving fans the fights they want does not pay for the bills with the husband or the possible kids you have coming on the way. And also, like, you know, as a person taking ownership in a career and expanding a brand, she's gonna get a ton of opportunities to kind of be a front person for a brand in bare knuckle fighting and this particular organization as like it's a front person as they grow and take you know, ownership of that. How important is that? I don't know if you've ever done anything like that in terms of like having ownership in an organization, in adult films or something else. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. It's a lot of pressure too, because I've been there in a different aspect, you know, directing and producing and owning a talent agency. So there, you know, that you're the face. I was the face of the agency, you know, so it's a huge reflection. However, I think, you know, she's been under pressure before. She's been in the limelight, and she's proven that she can withstand the pressure. So I think she's going to do great. I think she's going to be a perfect face for bare knuckle, and kudos to her. I'll be looking forward to seeing what she's going to do.
The last point I would make on that is the only issue I really have is, like, when we've watched Paige, great, really good grappler, similar to her husband, but she's only got like a couple knockouts. One was a head kick. Like, we don't know Paige for boxing, so that's the weirdest thing. Like, her going into box, like, that concerns me a little bit. Like, I'm not sure how well she'll do at first. Like, do you think she's good? Like, they already said, like, they're gonna slowly build her up into fights. They're not gonna throw in a deep end. Like, what do you think? Like, that's got to be the safe thing. She can't go in against top boxers yet.
No, absolutely not. So I'm sure they're not going to set her up for failure. So they're probably going to strategically plan how her fights are going to go. But for right now, you know, she should be, you know, relishing in, like, this is exciting. She's relishing in the limelight, I guess, at this point. And then, you know, when it's time to get down to business and she's going to take a fight, I think she's going to be more than prepared for it. She's going to have to adjust her training a little bit, and then that's fine. You know, she's still young, she's growing, she's learning. She's going to do great.
Now I have another question from the chat, and I think this is I have no influence, no power on social media. You have huge influence, so this I think is very relevant in that. Curry Ninja MMA, he says, yo, how's it going? Do you respond to comments?
On my social media?
I mean, that's where they left it. So I'm guessing, social media. Like, are you a person that gets involved with the fan experience and tries to comment to people, answer people there?
I do a section, especially for the podcast, where I will try to take fan questions and try to respond. Obviously, if they're completely outrageous, disrespectful, or vulgar, I'm not going to. But, you know, if someone can make me laugh in their question and there's a question behind it that's actually pretty good, then absolutely. So I do try to. Obviously, we can't answer everybody. You know this. Just people. who have a good following. It is hard, so you just do your best. And but I love fan engagement.
And here's another good question from the chat, especially since you just mentioned, I didn't know you led an agency. I think this is really important too. What other Marion Cravens asks, what other avenues of promotion do you think that MMA fighters should look at as far as earning more money? And I think like the Iridium Sports, that's an agency, they get a lot of ads for their fighters. Like a lot of their fighters do Manscaped. They have like Instagram videos, the Manscaped. I think that's great, smart stuff. Like as a person that as an agency, you kind of have to look for the other money sources. Like what would you suggest in terms of you're not managing MMA fighters, but where should the MMA fighters look to get that extra money?
Well, I think a lot of them, with UFC, they're limited with the Reebok, right? So they can't really, they're kind of.
And if you can't get it on TV there, it's like, it's not as valuable.
But I mean, they're with ESPN. So it's like, I from what I've heard, Bellator pays a little better. UFC gives you more the opportunity. So it's like I don't know. There's benefits to both, and they're both great organizations. However, with Bellator, I know they do stuff with Monster. There's things for CBD, which is huge. I don't know. Obviously, any type of sports, Nike, Under Armour, all those types of things. I think anything that's relevant to the sport would be important. They did one for what commercial was it? I think it was Anthony Reyes. And I can't remember what commercial it was.
Oh, the Toyo tires?
Yeah, the girl painting.
Yes.
I mean, really, in a way, they can do anything, But I feel like if you're going to expand your brand, or if you're going to represent a company, it has to be something that you somewhat believe in with, conviction. Don't want to take something that you can't really, So.
And I've talked to managers, and from what I've got over the last bunch of years, especially because of the Reebok deal, and even before the Reebok deal, like the UFC was forcing sponsors to pay a certain amount of money just to get their products on the fighters to start with, that the sponsorship side of things has really dried up in a lot of ways for fighters. So would you say, as a person that has millions of followers, is it, if a fighter isn't pushing their social media and getting on their social media, are they doing it wrong? Do you really have to build your social media? Because I see so many fighters just selling products on their Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, you cannot depend on a company to make you, okay? Yeah. You have to be able to talk. That's the thing. What made, aside from Conor McGregor being one of the greatest fighters of all time, what made him marketable? It was his personality, the way he spoke, he engaged, like he's just entertaining all around. So you have to brand yourself, kind of look at your demographic, your personality, and kind of brand yourself accordingly. You can't expect a company to make you. You have to be good at your craft, but you also have to reach out. And I mean, especially the Bellator fighters, you have to knock down doors. They're not going to come to you all the time. You have to put in the work. Nobody's going to work harder for you than you.
Now, this next question is straight for you, because you budding superstar in this podcast game now. Zebra Cheeks, they ask.
Ooh, I like that name.
And it's a frequent person that asks a question on here, so great job, Zebra Cheeks. Does Kendra think Joe Rogan's move to Spotify with his Joe Rogan experience may potentially open doors for MMA podcasters or podcasters like yourself who are currently still using YouTube? Do you think like him leaving and maybe other people going to Spotify, it's making YouTube an even better source because less competition maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great, I don't know how many $100 million move, okay? What was it? How many hundred, was it 700? I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I know it was big, yeah.
Huge move. Okay, I don't know what it was, but 7 mil, I don't know. Okay, don't quote me on this, but it was a huge payday for Joe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Joe is in a league of his own. So, I mean, in a way, you can't really, it's like apples and oranges. So, I didn't really answer your question, but I don't know. Joe's awesome. I love him. He's hilarious. His stand-up's great. I went and saw him in Detroit. And I'm just telling you, got to watch his stand-up. The guy is just, he's talented on so many levels and great entertainer. So,
the next question comes from Satan's Daddy. They come with another second question. They ask, so what will Bellator do with Ryan Bader? Book a rematch against Vadim Nemkov or let him defend heavyweight belt? I feel he's got to go defend the heavyweight belt. And honestly, to me, heavyweight really may be where he stays going forward because he could still be nasty there. Where I felt, at least in this fight with Vadim, he was a little slower. 37. The young guy at 27. The speed difference was like. What do you think? Like he tries to get a rematch with the heavyweight. What do you think his future is in light heavyweight in general?
Well, I think personally that he might do better in heavyweight. Would I like to see, or would people like to see a rematch? Absolutely. It was a great fight. I enjoyed it, but I mean, at the end of the day, he still holds the heavyweight title. I mean, he held 2 belts. He has one. He only has one now. However, I think maybe he'll do a little bit better in heavyweight. I don't know. We'll see, but rematch would be cool. I definitely put some bets in on that.
Now, talking about another fight on that card, Kung Lawins, I think that's how. Sorry, Kung, if I'm saying it. Kung Lawins, they ask, did Roy Nelson even train for his fight against Valentin Moldavsky? Now, let's be real here. Roy is getting long in the tooth, so to speak. If you're going to be the heaviest you've maybe ever been in your career and the oldest you've ever been in your career, probably a bad idea. Thoughts, Kendra? What do you think about that?
I think Roy's 44. Yeah, he's a big dude, but I mean, such a chin. Hey, and he went the duration. I don't know if the guy has the guy ever been knocked out. I mean, no. I was gonna say the guy is a beast. I don't know. Maybe he just loves to fight. I mean, I don't know. I'm not ready to hang up my thong. Maybe he's not ready to hang up his gloves. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question. But it takes one punch. Just one punch, and it's over. So I love him though. He's awesome.
Yeah, Bellator is in an interesting spot because I think now I was looking at it that night. I think he's like 1-5 now in Bellator, and his first win was his first fight. He's got a lot of miles on him. I'm sure he's a very expensive contract. They're in a tough spot. I know they said people in the arena said that he went up to Scott Coker after the fight and said, "Let me get one more fight," and he wanted the Matt Mitrione trilogy. That would make sense. They both have won once in their career against each other. The last fight was very close. It could have maybe even been a split. So, I don't know if you've seen either of their fights, Roy and Matt Mitrione's fights. They fought in the Grand Prix, but would that fight at least interest you, despite kind of like Roy being on a big losing skid right now?
It would interest me because I like Roy. I met Roy in Vegas, and he's a big sweetheart. So it's like when I meet someone, I don't know. Like, I don't care if he's considered, an underdog. I just a super nice guy. I don't care. I don't know. I would like to see him fight. I just want knockout for the big country boy. Yeah, I would.
Now, one last question. I think this one's kind of maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but The Spider asks, is Vadim Nemkov the best light heavyweight in the world with John Jones gone? I know my answer. What do you think? I already see you already have your answer.
Not yet. Not yet, young man. No, he's still a young grasshopper. Got a little bit of growing to do. Very tough, though. He looked great. He looked sharp, crisp. Yeah. I mean, good. A lot of potential, but it's a little too early, I think, to say that. That would be discrediting John Jones. Come on now.
Yeah, and even with John now out of the picture going to heavyweight, like Vadim, and I've watched all his fights in Bellator, he gets better, and he's got good wins. He's beaten 3 straight or 4 straight Bellator champions now in all his fights. His resume is getting better, but it's hard to pick against Dominic Reyes, a guy who was on the brink of beating the best, and it's hard. It's hard to pick against Thiago Santos, another guy that was close. Jan Blachowicz has been on fire, and just the resume is a little bit better. But Vadim's only 27. Just keep an eye on him and enjoy him. Let's not call him the best yet. Let's enjoy his rise to being one of the great young talents in this sport.
Absolutely. And I misspoke earlier. I said Anthony, and I was looking at Dominic's face. So I'm sorry on that. I apologize. My apologies, Dominic. Dominic is also one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Just hung out with him a couple times in Vegas. Big guy. You just sweetest guy. Anyway, now I forgot the damn question. But your point being that give him time. He'll develop, and still kind of early to say. So.
All right, so that's pretty much all the questions. Before we go, is there anything you want to let the people out there that watch this now or watch this later? Like, are there any projects you're working on you want to get out there and promote a little bit? Let them know the socials. Not that you need more social followers. You have millions already, but like anything you want to let the people know.
Hey, I'm just grateful. You know, I guess be patient. My MMA knowledge is coming slowly but surely, and you know, I'm still new, but I enjoy it, and I have a huge respect for the sport, the fans. Obviously, my podcast, the Beauty and the Beast podcast with Julie Marquez, will be slowly getting better and better, and you know, looking forward to, you know, gaining a fan, and you know, just grateful for everybody's support thus far.
All right, for me, you can always find me on Twitter, Instagram, Cheap Seats Chat, Sherdog.com. I'll have a few articles coming out this week, you know, for events coming up. Also wanted to throw out, you know, this for my homie, let me see, make sure it's on the camera. My friend Paul Gavoni, his new book is I just sent it to me. He's a great mind, working with American Top Team. Look for it on Amazon. Find it out there. Great training. It's a book on training. He gives like a ranking level for fighters and all this stuff. I'm going to start reading it soon. But Kendra Lust, thank you so much for the time. It was an absolute pleasure. Love the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. You are a wonderful host, and I'm so grateful for you having me. So I hope you have a great rest of your, what's today? Monday week.